Welcome to the Podcast Discovery Show, the podcast about other podcasts. Each week we dive deep into a podcast recommendation, and we have a book club style discussion about all the different things that it made us think and made us feel. And sometimes we get off on tangents along the way. And then at the end of the episode, we bring you a brand new podcast recommendation for you to go out and listen to, and join us next week for that discussion. I'm Josh.
I'm Kirk.
And I am Zach.
And this week, in our final... Is this the final one? Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
In our final Podfix Party episode, we are going to talk about bad reception. The specific episode is Swamp Thing.
Before we talk about this podcast, I will say I hate bad reception in general. Have you guys...
As a concept, not as a podcast.
Yeah. When you're on your phone and you're trying to talk to someone and they're breaking up and then you're breaking up and you can't hear them.
Can you hear me now?
It triggers me and I just
Can you
hang
hear
up
me
the
now?
phone and wait until later.
It's a type of rage that I rarely get that quickly enraged other than like that specific incident. Like I go from like 0 to 100 raged instantly.
What about if you drop your toast and it lands butter side down on the floor?
I don't care. I still eat it. But no, that bad reception, when I heard that, I was like, oh, I hate bad reception. But I was pleasantly surprised because this podcast is amazing.
But I love this bad reception. So the show is where Morgan and Mike, they get together every week and they talk about a show, a TV show that usually got canceled for reasons, most of the time because it was bad. Got bad reception, guys. It makes sense. It's like a double... It's a double meaning right there. But the particular episode that we picked was Swamp Thing, and it apparently was an actually really good show.
Very well received.
And had good reception. However, there was some reasons that we'll talk about later on that made it not last. And I'm excited to talk about it. And I wish I would have seen this show. I tried to find it, but I'm not going to pay the money to watch it. We'll talk about that again later on, too.
Well, I think we just hit that real quick.
Okay, we'll hit it real
I
quick.
was wondering where this was, too.
Anyone that tried to watch this show, you probably quickly or through a couple minutes of Google searching found out that it's only on DC Universe Online's streaming service. So DC made their own streaming service because, of course, everyone needs their own streaming service if you're a media company.
Even if
and
you
it's
have one
$8
show
a
on
month.
it, you need that.
It's $8 a month to watch.
So it's as much as
this show.
Netflix, basically.
No, the Disney one's going to be cheaper than that. That's literally Disney and Marvel
and all of Marvel
and Star Wars
and Fox and Star Wars. It blows my mind that DC thought they could do this.
Yeah.
DC also thinks they can make good movies, and they can't do that either.
They have had trouble in the past.
I don't know. This one infuriated me.
Yeah.
This was the amount of hubris that I was like, are you serious? You think that you have enough content to make a whole streaming service and then try to get me to pay $8 a month so that I can watch this original content, which is Swamp Thing, which sounds awesome, but I'm not going to pay $8 a month for it, my friend. You're hoping that I'll sign up for your free trial and then forget to cancel it.
And I mean, that's why I still have CBS All Access, because I've forgotten like 3 months in a row.
So CBS is banking on Zach.
And yes, they are. Because I was hoping, at one point, my credit card got pinged for somebody was using it. They tried to buy something for $2 at CVS in California. So I canceled it, and I was like, oh, sweet. I'm going to not even have to worry about canceling CBS All Access because it's just they're going to try and do that credit card, but it's gone now. Nope. Set it up through my PayPal. They get me every month.
I feel like it's like a scam that they do for like elderly people where they just call everybody and hope that an elderly person that doesn't understand like tech and is like, I can help you with your Windows computer thing.
Yeah, elderly
like,
people,
please
it's like,
help me.
Your identity is stolen. Give me your social security number and I'll check and see if it's stolen.
But yeah, these streaming services are popping up everywhere. They're useless because they're so fragmented now. It's more of the same problem that is why streaming services started. So we'll see how the market bounces
They
back.
forgot why people wanted Netflix.
I feel like there's going to be a weird gap where everyone's like, oh man, I'm tired of paying for cable. So I'm going to start paying for some streaming services. And then if you actually want all the stuff you want to watch, it's like going to be like $5,000.
Oh no, it costs more than my car.
But right now it's kind of still cheaper because if cable is at least like $60, $70.
They basically give away cable now with your internet. They want
do they?
you to have it.
But the thing is, you were paying $70 or $80 a month for cable before.
Yeah.
So if that's 7 or 8 streaming services at $10 a pop.
It's still a better experience because they don't have ads.
Right.
So they still have that going for them, but they are...
And there are some of these places are putting out some really good original content, like the CBS All Access. The Twilight Zone is bomb. You
Yeah,
guys,
and
I've
Star
said this
Trek-
a million
Star
times.
Trek
You gotta listen to it.
Discovery.
Yeah, I didn't. I forgot
think
they moved
Picard
it to
is
there.
about to come to the same thing.
I didn't know that was going to the CBS.
Yeah, I think so. I think
looks
that
awesome.
they have Star Trek right now, if I remember correctly.
Well, good thing you have CBS All
I know.
Access.
Lucky for me that I watched the Super Bowl on CBS All Access free trial, and they got me ever since.
Yeah. Well, next year
You
can
can't
watch
say
the Super
Super Bowl.
too.
Superb Owl.
The big game Tony.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, now we're not going
The
to get
Superb
sued.
Owl or the big game Tony, either way.
I doubt there's anyone from the NFL listening to our podcast.
But if you are, we're looking for sponsors.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tom Brady, if you want to sponsor our show, we'd be
But-
glad to have you.
But yeah, bad reception. Great podcast. I actually thought, like, a lot of times I listen to smaller, more independent indie podcasts, and the audio quality's not amazing, and the editing's not super tight. This podcast nailed the editing
Oh, it sounds great.
and their audio
They
quality.
made the editing fun in
Yeah.
a way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, overall, like, this is like a really, really good sounding podcast. They have really good chemistry together. They don't cross talk. Like, just their overall quality of like the mechanics of their podcast is really good. And and we listen to a ton of podcasts.
Yeah, we do.
So we've heard the good, we've heard the bad, and theirs is really, really clean.
It was noticeably good.
I wish you guys would know how many podcasts we listen to that we don't talk about on here, because there's
Yeah.
a lot.
There's podcasts I've listened to that were so bad I turned off within 5 minutes.
Yes, many of them.
And there's some that were so bad that I kept listening, trying to figure out what was happening, and listened to like half an hour to an hour and listen to a full episode. And I'm like, what just happened? That's bad, and I can't talk about it.
We need to
And I
make
can't even
another.
explain what happened.
We need to make another podcast about how bad other podcasts are.
I just feel
kidding.
like that has to exist
Oh, I'm
I'm
already.
sure there is, yeah.
And I don't want to be like we've talked about before. We're trying to be positive about
Yeah.
about things, not bring negativity.
Nobody needs that.
But it is a thing that there's a lot of bad podcasts.
But yeah, their editing, their audio, all great, and they were able to seamlessly incorporate some hilarious bloopers at the beginning of this episode, because the format of the show is they kind of get together, they talk about what they're going to be. They have a little bit of kind of a warm up where they talk to each other, and then they talk about their guess on what the episode is. But before they got to any of that, they had 3 or 4 interruptions that became really good edits.
Yeah.
They had, okay, the cat definitely destroyed something, and if you guys are listening, please let us know what that cat did, because it sounded like he knocked over.
it sounded like it knocked over your grandma's china.
It sounded very loud, and your reactions both made us
Very happy.
happy and concerned a little bit. I definitely had some concern there.
I guess I'm a sadist because I was very happy.
But then they just they'd play their little intro music and then just go right into it, and it's seamless. I wish that we could have edits that we could incorporate into the show, but most of the
know.
time they have to be burned.
Yeah,
Yes.
normally our edits are...
burn in fire, please.
And the next edit was, he basically kicked things off and started talking to her. And he's like, you're not paying attention to me, so I can't focus on you if you're not focusing on me. She's like, I'm researching. I gotta look at this. And she's like, just keep going and I'll do this. And he's like, well, I can't focus. Another edit. And they play like bumper music, like a bumper sound between, so it made it hilarious. And then they start talking again and they start to get into it. And then his phone rings. And he's like, oh man,
Today is just not the day for recording.
yeah. Another bumper and sound and cut into the podcast finally. And I just thought the way that they used their edits to add comedic value to their podcast was amazing. I thought it was just really well done. The editing was really good. It was hilarious. Just really, really good editing,
Yeah.
I think is really what it comes down to.
There was
Editing is an art.
It really is. There was another transition I really enjoyed, and that's we got to see the first 10 minutes of the episode was with drunk Morgan, but then they go and watch the episode, and the next day it's sober coffee drinking Morgan. So you get to see both sides.
It was hilarious in the intro. She's like, so I've had a little bit of gin tonight.
And then she played Slim Shady.
Yep, she did.
For her
Guess
intro.
who's back? Back
Which
again.
I love that whole just her being
Morgan's back.
ridiculous. Yeah, I love that whole bit. that she
Drinking
did.
gin.
Yeah,
Did she say that?
No.
I don't think so.
I
Kirk
just
made
did.
that up.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Enjoy that, because that's exactly what was happening. But yeah, no, it was a really fun podcast. You can tell that they enjoyed the podcast and they enjoyed the process of it, and they're having a good time. And really, that lends a lot to it. And you enjoy listening to it when they're having a good time.
Yeah. It makes
Absolutely.
me want to start a podcast with my wife.
Yeah, they've got great chemistry, which I think they're dating. I think I gathered that, or they're married. I don't know.
They have a
It's one
cat
of the
together.
I
have
haven't
a
looked
cat
them up on
together.
Facebook to see their relationship status, but they have a cat together. So
They're either dating or married. One of the two.
is that a status you can put on Facebook?
We have a
a
cat.
cat together.
It should be if it's not.
I mean, that's pretty serious commitment. I would say that's something. We have a shared animal that's
Shared animal. That's what it should say.
Shares an animal.
shares an animal with.
What? Becky went from it's complicated to has a cat together.
Why did they get a cat? They don't have a house.
They live in a cardboard box.
Not these two. I'm talking hypotheticals right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Becky.
there's no Becky
Whoever
over
Yeah,
Becky
Becky,
is.
not Morgan.
Homeless Becky.
Good old, good old homeless Becky.
So,
She lives in Florida, man.
but overall, I love this podcast. Again, great chemistry, great audio quality. It's just one of those podcasts. It's pleasant and a joy to listen to when you get a podcast where they have good chemistry and they have good editing and good audio quality. It makes the podcast that much better. You don't have to overcome bad quality or bad editing or whatever else. So it really enjoyed it. So thank you guys for making a great podcast. Thank you, Kirk, for recommending this one. And it's great to be part of a network with podcasts that are this good. So
Yeah, and I listened to a few of their other episodes. I think one of my other favorite episodes was they did one on, I guess, Saved by the Bell made like a spinoff, and
Try
it was
anything you can to stay on top, I guess.
oh, they literally tried the same exact formula where they each character from the original they tried to recreate with different actors. It was, oh man, it sounded horrible. It sounded so bad. And,
I mean, the original version is okay.
really cheesy.
I feel like we have nostalgia glasses on that show because we like grew
Just
up
a little
watching
bit.
it. But
I grew up watching that in reruns early in the morning on my way, like
yeah,
getting ready
same.
for school.
But I think that it was not good even
And-
then.
this may offend some people, but I feel like that's like Big Bang Theory quality television from a previous generation.
Oh yeah, Big Bang Theory. Have you ever watched that without the laugh track?
It's not.
It's horrible.
It's not good television. It's got some laughs in it. It's quirky, but it's not like a good show.
My
Like,
weird thing
Breaking
is-
Bad is a good show.
Yes.
Big Bang Theory, it's got some laughs in it.
Silicon
but it's not a
Valley is
good
what
show.
Breaking Bad. I mean, what Big Bang Theory should be.
Yes.
Yes, because that's the thing. I feel like they're like pretend nerds and they're all kind of mean. None of them are really nice people. They're just really nerdy and kind of awful.
We're nerds, guys, and we don't act like that.
I heard a quote that's pretty pretentious and might offend some people, but it basically said that Big Bang Theory is a show about smart people for stupid people. And I think it was Sunny was a show about
or
stupid
Arrested
people for
Development,
smart.
I've heard
Or
this.
Arrested Development is a show about stupid people for smart people.
I don't think that's offensive. I think it's funny, and it's pretty true.
People that love Big Bang Theory might be a little offended because I kind of just called them stupid, but
I mean, I've
me know-
watched
let me
it
know-
on I've watched it on a plane before, and I found more enjoyment than looking at the back of a headrest. So hey,
Yeah.
hey,
That's
Big Bang
something.
Theory. It's better than the back of a headrest. And
Tagline.
here's what I'll say: if any of you,
TM.
if any of our listeners love the Big Bang Theory, and you want to tell me why it's good and why I'm wrong about this, and give it a second shot, let me know. Hit me up on Twitter, email us,
At
whatever you want to
Kanye
do.
West.
At the PDS Josh, no, at PDS Josh. I have no the at PDS Josh on Twitter.
you're a PDS Josh, not the PDS Josh.
It's correct.
But yeah, then they start talking about the show that they are talking about for the week, and it is Swamp Thing.
Swamp
So-
Thing.
One of the things they did before they started talking about the show was they guessed what they thought the show was gonna be about.
That's what I love about their
Yes.
format. So most of the time they come in without having watched this said show that has gotten canceled. So they give predictions on what they think the show is about. And that's part of the comedy. And it's great. I loved it. It's one of my favorite parts of the show.
And I think she started talking about. She basically started giving the plot to Tommy Boy,
Yep.
and she's like, "I forget what Tommy Boy's about, so I have to abandon this whole thing and start over," which I loved because Tommy Boy's an all-time American classic. So anytime Tommy Boy's referenced, I'm happy.
Yeah, I can go for it anytime.
Yeah, and I love just this bit. It flows really organically with the structure of their show. I really enjoy that it just gives them something to kind of riff about prior to watching the show. Then they go watch it and they come back and talk about the actual show.
And so this show actually sounds awesome, dude.
I would watch it.
I
Sounds
actually
good.
didn't know anything about Swamp Thing. I told Zach today, I'm like, I thought, just like she did, Morgan, she thought that it was basically the creature from the Black Lagoon. That's what I thought it was. When I heard about Swamp Thing, I visualized like the bad guy from the old like Universal scary movies,
Yeah.
like the Dracula or Creatures in the Black Lagoon or whatever.
Yeah, there was like, what did they call? I can't remember what they called that like canon of movies, because it was like the Mummy, the Wolfman, Creature
Yeah.
from the Black Lagoon, and Dracula.
Yeah.
Were like the originals.
I mean, that's what I was thinking about. I thought that's what Swamp Thing was. I didn't know it was a comic. I mean, it's just me not being a really big comic book guy. And so I was actually really intrigued. I actually looked up the picture of what he looked like, and I'm like, oh, yeah, I've seen this before somewhere. I don't know where I saw it, obviously somewhere. But this show sounded awesome. It sounded like something I would really like to watch. And it really stinks that it's behind a random paywall. But hopefully someday we'll be able to watch it. And it sounded like the effects were amazing.
Yeah, and that's one of the things because I had heard generally of what the outcome of this show was, because people were pretty hyped that it was coming out, because they were talking about, oh, we have this huge budget for it. It's going to be a really next level DC show, because they kind of did a lot of stuff on like the CW, and they would do more like soap opera-y. You know, they would try and bring it more to reality rather than like a superhero movie.
The one that made it decent was like Supergirl, right? Or The Flash. The Flash made it for a little bit.
Yeah, the Flash, Arrow,
Smallville.
Gotham, all of those things. Yeah,
I liked
Smallville.
Smallville. It was cheesy,
Yeah,
but
it's-
back when I was that age,
Yeah.
when it was coming out, I liked Smallville.
But this one sounds like they're like, okay, we're streaming it, so TVMA, it's going to be violent and upsetting to look at, and there's going to be cursing in it. And so they were going kind of all out, it sounds like, for this show.
I'm all for that. I am all for that.
Yeah, there was a bit where they said it reminded them of John Carpenter's The Thing, which is like one of the like ultimate horror movies. And if you get that reaction from your show, you're doing something right.
Yeah. And that is still world renowned for practical effects and using them very effectively to be really disturbing looking.
Yeah, they talked about some of the practical effects and how like people need to watch it just to try to figure out, because that's what's fun about practical effects is like try to figure out how they did that. Like, how did they do that?
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I think it was the part when they were in the lab and they were making they were basically showing what Swamp Thing came from, which was like the random weird mutant
Something in
swamp
the water.
stuff. Yeah, something in the water.
Some
Somebody
swamp
poisoned
jelly.
the water hole.
Yeah, and they had a really strong cast for this. I don't think I know any of the actors because I'm not well versed in Hollywood actors and actresses, but it sounded like they had a really strong cast. It was really well acted. It wasn't cheesy. It was just really, really good. And I think the IMDb rating was like 9 or 9.3 or
Could
something.
be. I heard nothing but good things, and then they're like, oh, spoiler alert, canceled.
So why
it's so
was
frustrating.
Why was it canceled?
The production budget was apparently crazy.
Well, yeah, and they talked about like what DC was, or this somebody was bought by somebody, and they're like, oh no, this DC streaming service is gone. Like, bye bye.
Yeah, but the thing
Because
that's
it's dumb.
The thing that's dumb to me is sometimes it takes money to make a good movie, especially if you're relying on heavy, non-real things like Swamp Thing. Like you gotta invest some money.
Game
to
of
make
Thrones
it
costed a little
good.
bit of money, guys.
right?
And it
Right.
was great.
So-
Not at the beginning, though.
Right.
Yeah, but there wasn't much
I bet if you
CGI
look
and
at
stuff
the
at the beginning.
episode cost from episode 1 to the final episode, there's a bit of a difference there, because there's
Yeah.
literally no magic in the first season of Game of Thrones.
True.
So, I mean, the locations were
Just
amazing.
some
Costume design,
Costume
amazing.
and some makeup.
They had Sean Bean, but that was the biggest actor in the entire show at the time. You see what I mean? So there was a different like scale of magnitude on how they ramped it. And so that was maybe their issue, is they were so ambitious on the front that they kind of got upside down immediately.
I'd be curious because it is so early in, like, because it just started airing. Like, I think it's like June or July. Like, it just started.
Do you think there'll be enough fan?
There might
Maybe.
be. There
because
might be enough
maybe
demand.
even for a pickup. You
Right.
see what I mean? So like Netflix could do a pickup, because Netflix will blow money on a show.
Well, it's probably the Warner Brothers, because what happened is Warner Brothers said we're going to start a studio streaming service, and they're the one that owns DC's rights. So their streaming service,
okay.
they may say, "Hey, there's a huge amount of demand for this. Let's do it," but be a little bit
It's
more
the
conscious of
ultimate
the
hype
budget.
cycle. They're going to cancel a really good show to make you want it.
Yeah.
I mean, the other shows have been canceled early though. You know, Firefly had one season.
Yep.
So sometimes it just happens. But this one sounds disappointing because the show sounds really cool.
Yeah.
And they end up going through a whole breakdown of all of they do basically an episode synopsis of the first episode. They take you through all of the stuff. They talk about the cool elements. They talk about all the character building, which honestly just makes it more painful when you know the outcome, because you're like, all of these things sound cool. They were talking about the parents. You would recognize both of them even if you don't know their names. They're very Virginia Madsen's great. I think his name's Will Patton, also great. You've seen him and stuff. He was in like Remember the Titans. I guarantee you've seen him. And so they did have some real heavy hitters as kind of some of the not like main antagonists or protagonists, but like on the side, but they were really strong castings. And so it's kind of disappointing really, because now this episode made me want to watch the show, even though I know what happens.
Yeah.
But honestly, I think that means they made a pretty good podcast.
They made a great podcast, and I'm glad that we picked the episode that we picked. They do this little thing at the end. Josh, how would you describe the little segment? It's like their Todd's segment where it's other discoveries.
Yeah, it's just like, here's some other stuff that we did this week. And Morgan said they were playing this game. What did she call it? Burger Bombs or something?
Burger time.
She called it something wrong. And he's like, no, it's called Overcooked. She's like, okay, so we were playing Burger Time. And we've talked about this on the podcast because I got triggered and go full Gordon Ramsay every time I play this game.
It's burnt.
It's
including when his 5-year-old son was playing with us.
Yes.
I think he was about 5 at the time.
Yeah. So it's really fun, but it's very fast paced, and you're kind of like trying to work together to run a kitchen. Basically, it's very cartoony and fun. It's amazingly fun. If you want to play a couch co-op game, Overcooked is an amazing one to play.
It's a good one.
It is fun. I played it on the Switch for that 3 weeks that we had.
It's a lot of team strategy, which is kind of rare that you're all on the same side of something on a co-op.
Yeah, it is.
Like that.
And his, I guess, discovery, I'll call it what we call it. His discovery for the week was he watched a movie called Next of Kin, and he disclaimers it's not the beat 'em up movie that came out in America. It's an Australian horror movie.
I have seen the beat 'em up movie because it's Patrick Swayze and Bill Paxton and Liam Neeson are brothers from like Louisiana, and I think one of them gets got.
And then the
other ones get mad, and like Patrick Swayze is like shooting people with a crossbow.
What?
That sounds amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Like Rambo in the
more like Roadhouse, but yeah.
I gotta watch Roadhouse. I don't know anything about
Roadhouse.
Roadhouse. It's ridiculous. Roadhouse is a good movie though.
I saw a vinyl for the soundtrack for Roadhouse.
That's what made me think about it today, because you said that, and I'm like, what?
I've seen that too. He like death kicks people. It's pretty funny.
That movie's ridiculous. But anyways, it's not that Next of Kin. It's a different one, and it's a Australian horror movie that's a slow burn. It's not jump scares. It's more thematic, like slow burn horror, where they're in like I think he called it like haunted house, which not my style at all. But Zach, it sounds like exactly the kind of horror movies that you enjoy.
Yeah,
you've
I would
watched
definitely
a couple
watch
like that.
Yeah, I definitely like schlocky 80s horror for sure. I like atmospheric stuff in general, so that definitely sounds awesome. I'm going to have to check it out.
All right, so I think that brings us to this week's discovery, which is...
So I think it's time we talk about Conan O'Brien.
I'm always down.
Conan's funny. I like Conan.
He needs a friend.
I didn't know I liked Conan until later in my life, but now I've realized that I like Conan.
Yeah, he's pretty good. I know
I'll be his friend.
When he started his show, I watched pretty good amount of episodes, and consistently funny. I like his sense of humor and his style. I'm all about it. But he has a podcast now, and it's called Conan O'Brien Needs a Friend. And we're going to recommend the episode with Andy Richter. So Andy Richter is his co-host and longtime friend. Just, you can't go wrong.
What do you guys remember Andy Richter from?
I definitely remember him from Elf.
That's what I remember him from, is from Elf. That's the main thing I remember him from.
Elf had such good casting because literally the two writers were Andy Richter and Kyle Gass from Tenacious D.
And then Peter Dinklage was in there too.
Dinklage was a writer. And
it's so good.
Yeah, that movie's great. But yeah.
I remember him from Elf, and that's... yeah, he was one of the writers for that really bad storybook about the asparagus.
He has really good cameos on sitcoms too. Andy Richter will show up in things that's usually funny.
Yeah.
So this should be a good episode, especially because they've known each other for so long.
I think he's hilarious. And like you said, they're going to have a chemistry that I'm really excited to listen to.
Absolutely. So go out and give that a listen. Come back next week. Hear us talk about it. Thanks for listening.
And remember,
there's always more to discover.
Thank you for listening to the Podcast Discovery Show. We have a few things we'd like to tell you. First, We would love to hear from you on Twitter at the PDS Official or in our Facebook group, the Podcast Discovery Club.
Secondly, leaving a rating or review on iTunes helps tremendously in giving us visibility and also visibility to the podcast that we recommend. You can also check out our Patreon page to get exclusive bloopers, old episode archives, and other exclusive content while supporting the show.
Finally, seriously, get in touch. We'd love to hear from you about what you love about podcasts. And thank you for being a part of all of the things that we do.
This was a podcast from the Podfix Network. You can check out more shows like it at podfixnetwork.com.